All right, let's dive in. Today we're heading over to South Korea.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, we're looking at this self-help book that's been making waves over there called
Yeah.
30-Year-Old Life Hack, 7 Steps.
Catchy.
It is, right. The original title is, get this, 37RTDEDF.
I'm definitely going to need help with that pronunciation.
Me too. But basically, it boils down to this promise of finding both financial and personal freedom.
I feel like that's a pretty universal desire, no matter where you are in the world.
Totally. So we're going to unpack the author's story, see what these 7 steps are all about, and hopefully pull out some insights that our listeners can actually use.
I love it. It's always fascinating to see how self-help kind of differs across cultures.
Right?
Like, we tend to focus so much on individual achievement in the West, but this book
Yeah.
seems to tap into something very specific about what South Koreans are striving for.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. And the author, Ja Chong, he does not hold back when talking about his past. He straight up calls himself poor, unattractive, a terrible student, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, that's some honesty right there.
Seriously. He even talks about, like, hating the freezing floor in his childhood home and not even being able to get a job at a convenience store.
Oof. I feel like everyone can relate to struggling to find a job, at least at some point in their lives.
Yeah, it's definitely something we've all been through. But that's the thing with these kinds of stories, right?
Totally.
You start with something relatable, almost like a low point,
Yeah.
and then any success after that seems even more impressive.
Absolutely. It's classic self-help,
Yeah,
Hook them with the struggle, then bam, here's the transformation.
exactly. And for Jen Chiong, the turning point is super interesting.
Oh,
He finds self-help books, specifically one about, get this, conversation skills.
huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and that sparks this fascination with life strategy.
Mm,
He actually compares life to a video game at one point.
really?
I know, right? But his point is both have these cheat codes if you just know where to look.
I kind of like that analogy.
Right. It's kind of cheesy, but it makes you think.
It does. And to be fair, there is something powerful about approaching self-improvement as a game, right?
Totally.
Like, you can learn the rules, you can develop strategies, you can level up.
I love that. And it's not just some motivational fluff. There's actually research on this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, studies suggest that just reading success stories can actually shift our mindset.
That's fascinating. So even if we don't immediately apply every tip or trick, just being exposed to those positive narratives can make a
And
difference.
it's like planting seeds, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They might not sprout right away,
Mhm.
but the potential is there.
I like that. So, armed with this newfound knowledge, Jae-song starts tutoring while he's in college,
Okay.
making way more money than before, and then he uses his psychology know-how.
Psychology? Cool.
I know, right?
Yeah.
He starts a relationship advice business.
Whoa, hold on. That's pretty clever.
It is. He even shares the story about waking up to a text message, and it's his first payment from a client.
Oh, that's got to feel good.
Right. Talk about validation.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
Unfortunately, no. Jae-jeong's journey is full of setbacks, too.
I was going to say, no one just cruises to success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He talks about this business partnership that totally flops and leaves him with nothing. And then to make matters worse, he gets hit with a chronic illness while doing his military service.
That's rough. It's like one thing after another.
I know, right? But here's the thing. He really emphasizes reframing failure as a learning opportunity.
I think that's so important.
Yeah.
It's like so easy to get bogged down when things go wrong.
Totally.
But if you can see those setbacks as lessons,
Yeah.
it can completely change your trajectory.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think this is where that whole idea of grit comes in, right?
Absolutely. Grit is all about perseverance,
Mm.
resilience, bouncing back from those challenges.
And it's clear that Jae-jeong has that in spades. He recovers from his illness,
Good for him.
starts new businesses, and eventually achieves that financial freedom he was after.
That's great to hear.
But here's another interesting twist. He shifts his focus from making money hourly
Okay.
to building these passive income streams.
Ooh, that's smart.
Right. It shows a deeper understanding of how wealth actually works.
It's like playing the long game instead of just chasing quick wins.
Exactly. So after a few rounds of game over, he finally cracks the code.
Love it.
And he lays out these 7 steps in his book, but
Yeah.
maybe instead of thinking of them as a rigid formula,
Yeah,
we should approach them as more like thought-provoking concepts.
I like that because what works for one person
Right.
might not be the magic bullet for everyone else.
Totally. So step 1, are you ready for this?
I'm all ears.
Break free from ego.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's not just about being arrogant or anything like that. It's about recognizing those defensive mechanisms we all have
Yeah.
that sometimes stop us from actually learning and
I
growing.
feel like I'm guilty of that sometimes.
Me too. He gives these examples of people who, like, reject good advice simply because it threatens their sense of self.
Oh, I've definitely seen that happen. It's like their identity is so tied up in being right
Exactly.
that they miss out on the opportunity to actually improve.
It's a tough cycle to break.
It is. But I do think that recognizing it is like the first step.
Right. Got to be self-aware.
Totally.
Yeah.
And open to new ideas, even if they challenge our existing beliefs.
So true. Okay, on a step 2, this one's called Shape Your Identity.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
This is where that video game analogy really comes back in. He talks about how he basically chose the identity of a successful entrepreneur.
Interesting.
And to, like, solidify that choice, he used YouTube to hold himself accountable.
What do you mean?
So he would make these videos about his journey, his goals, all that. And by putting it out there publicly,
Yeah?
he was kind of forcing himself to live up to that image.
That's actually pretty clever.
Right. It's like external pressure meets self-motivation.
Totally. And, this aligns with a lot of other tactics people use for, like, reinforcing a desired self-image.
Oh, like what?
Like visualization techniques where you imagine yourself already embodying the qualities you want
Yeah.
or surrounding yourself with people who already have those traits.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's all about creating this environment that supports the identity you're trying to build.
I love that. Okay, brace yourself for step 3.
Hit me with it.
It's called Beware of Genetic Misdirection.
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
It is, and it's kind of complex. He's arguing that our instincts aren't always suited to modern life.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, for example, he talks about our urge to overeat,
Right.
which back in the day, when food was scarce,
Yeah.
made sense.
You got to stock up when you can.
Totally.
Yeah.
But nowadays, with food everywhere,
Oh, I see where he's going with this.
it can lead to all sorts of problems.
Right. Like our bodies haven't quite caught up to the abundance we have now.
Exactly. So he's basically saying we need to be aware of these ingrained instincts
Yeah.
and make conscious decisions instead of just running on autopilot.
It's like our biology is still wired for a different world.
Totally. And it makes you think about all those everyday urges and habits, right?
It really does.
Yeah.
But how do we actually move beyond just being aware of them?
Well, that's where step 4 comes in. Zhejiang is huge on training your brain.
Okay. How
He's a big reader, like 2 hours every day kind of reader.
Wow, that's commitment.
Right. And he claims that by doing that, by reading and also writing for 2 hours a day, he significantly improved his reading comprehension and his ability to synthesize information.
So it's not just about passively consuming information, but actively processing it.
Exactly. He even calls it the 22 strategy.
22.
2 hours reading, 2 hours writing. And he compares it to compound interest, but for your brain.
I like that. So small, consistent effort over time can lead to big gains.
Precisely. But here's the question. Is there any science behind this? Can we really make our brains smarter just by reading more?
That's a great question. And the answer is, to a certain extent, yes.
Really?
There's this whole field of neuroscience that's revealing how incredibly plastic our brains are.
Plastic.
I mean, they can actually change and adapt throughout our lives.
That's incredible.
It is. And reading is like mental exercise, right?
Yeah.
It strengthens those neural pathways, increases cognitive flexibility.
So it's like building mental muscle.
Exactly.
I'm sold. So Zhejiang might be onto something with this 22 strategy.
It's not magic, but it's definitely a deliberate effort to push our brains further.
Totally. And it makes me think about his next step, which is the contrarian's toolbox.
Contrarian, huh?
Oh,
Sounds intriguing.
it is, but he's a little vague on this one.
Oh.
It seems to be about independent thinking and making good decisions, but it's not so much about specific tools as it is a mindset.
Go. I'm listening.
He talks about the giver theory, which is his take on reciprocity.
Reciprocity, so like give and take.
Yeah, but his idea is that giving more than you take actually leads to greater rewards.
Interesting.
He also mentions probability gambling, but not like actual gambling.
Oh, good.
It's more about making decisions based on calculated risks.
So understanding the odds and making informed choices.
Exactly. He's not saying be reckless, but be willing to challenge conventional wisdom.
I see. Think differently, but also think strategically.
Exactly. And he throws in a couple other intriguing concepts.
Like what?
Titan tools, and genetically embedded craftsmanship.
Whoa, those are some big words.
I know, right? From what I gather, Titan tools are more about approaches to work.
Okay,
And genetically embedded craftsmanship is about like a deep dedication to your craft
I like that.
and a constant pursuit of excellence.
So finding your passion and honing your skills.
Exactly. And he brings up Warren Buffett as an example. Like, we can learn from these successful people.
That makes sense.
He also mentions metacognition.
Meta what?
Metacognition. It's like thinking about thinking, basically analyzing your own thought process.
Right, to avoid biases and make better decisions.
Exactly. And he stresses the importance of building momentum.
Momentum, how?
It's about how even small actions can create a ripple effect over time.
Yeah, I can see that.
He even challenges readers to, like, think of one thing they can do in the next 60 seconds to make their life better.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. It's a reminder that even tiny steps can lead to big change.
I love that. So we've covered a lot of ground with these first 5 steps.
We have. It's like Jia is laying the groundwork for a total mindset shift.
Totally. Breaking free from those limiting beliefs.
Yes.
And embracing a more proactive approach to life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Welcome back to our deep dive into 30-year-old life hack, 7 steps.
Glad to be back.
So we've explored Jia story and those first 5 steps.
All about mindset.
Yeah, and personal growth, right.
Totally.
Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of achieving financial freedom.
Okay, let's do it.
This is step 6. And this is where things get a little more practical, but we got to keep in mind that this book was written for a South Korean audience.
Right, different cultures, different contexts.
Exactly. So some strategies might not translate perfectly for everyone listening.
That's true, but I'm sure there are some universal principles we can pull out.
Totally. And Jia really emphasizes understanding those fundamental principles of making money.
Okay, like what?
He believes financial freedom is achievable regardless of age, profession, your current financial situation, all that.
That's a powerful message.
It is. And he breaks it down into 5 learning methods.
5. Okay, lay it on me.
So the first one is the idea of the cashless economy.
Cashless.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
leveraging information and expertise to create value
Okay.
without needing a ton of upfront capital.
I see. So like online businesses, digital products, that kind of thing.
Exactly, which makes sense in today's digital landscape.
Really,
Right?
everything's moving online.
Right. And he also talks about the power of building a personal brand,
Oh yeah, that's huge EE these days.
isn't it? But how do you stand out in such a crowded online world?
That's the million-dollar question. And luckily, Jia has some ideas.
Oh, good. I was hoping you'd say that.
He stresses the importance of scalability.
Scalability.
Yeah, like building businesses or systems that can grow exponentially
Okay.
without you having to put in like a proportional amount of effort.
So it's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter.
Exactly. Creating systems that work for you, not the other way around.
I love that. And he also mentions automated systems.
Oh yeah, automation is key these days.
It is using technology to like automate tasks and generate those passive income streams.
Ooh, passive income, that's the dream.
Right. And isn't this where we get into the whole multiple streams of income thing?
Exactly. Jia is a big proponent of diversifying your income sources.
So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And he also talks about the importance of leverage.
Leverage. Interesting.
It could be leveraging other people's skills, their time, even their resources
Okay.
to amplify your own efforts. So think collaborations, building a team, that kind of thing.
I see. So instead of trying to do everything yourself.
You're strategically using resources to maximize your impact.
That's smart. And he draws a lot of inspiration from successful entrepreneurs like Warren Buffett.
Oh yeah, classic example.
Yeah, highlighting how they use these principles to create massive wealth.
It's like studying the masters.
Totally. And he encourages readers to like really study these individuals, learn from their strategies.
I like that. It's not just about wishing for wealth. It's about actively learning from those who've achieved it.
Exactly. And even create a blueprint for your own financial freedom.
A blueprint, huh? So specific steps, milestones.
Yeah, a plan of action. It's that combination of mindset and practical strategies that I find so interesting.
Me too. It's not enough to just think positively. You got to back it up with a plan and consistent action.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that brings us to his final step.
Okay, hit me with it.
The contrarian's wheel.
Contrarians.
Mhm.
I'm sensing a theme here.
There is. And this step feels like the culmination of all the others.
Oh, how so?
It's about embracing failure as a stepping stone to success.
I knew it. That contrarian mindset.
He argues that most people are hardwired to fear failure, but contrarians use that fear to their advantage.
Interesting.
They intentionally seek out challenges and learn from their mistakes.
So it's like turning that fear into fuel.
Exactly. He even compares it to top athletes and gamers.
Yeah, gamers, really.
Yeah, they intentionally seek out tougher opponents as they progress.
Oh, I see. To push their limits and improve.
Right, because they recognize that losses are essential for growth.
It's like that saying, you learn more from your failures than your successes.
Exactly. But, I mean, isn't that kind of counterintuitive? Why seek out failure?
He's advocating for a growth mindset,
Okay.
believing that our abilities can be developed through hard work, dedication, and, yeah, learning from those setbacks.
So by intentionally putting ourselves in situations where we might fail,
We're accelerating our learning.
I like that. And he uses this analogy of a wheel,
A wheel.
implying the cycle of setting goals, taking action, facing challenges, learning from those experiences, and using those lessons to set even bigger goals.
It's about constant evolution, always pushing forward.
Exactly. And using failure as fuel for that growth.
I love that analogy.
So he's basically saying that financial freedom isn't a one-time achievement.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
Of learning, adapting, and continuously pushing yourself.
Exactly. What a powerful way to wrap up the book.
It is. So we've covered all 7 steps, from mindset shifts to practical strategies.
We have. What are your overall impressions?
Well, I admire Jae-Young's enthusiasm and that never give up attitude.
Sure.
And while some of his advice might seem a little simplistic, maybe overly reliant on anecdotes,
Yeah.
there are some genuinely insightful nuggets in there. He reminds us that success, both financial and personal, often comes down to mindset, deliberate action, and continuous learning.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's definitely made me reconsider my own approach to personal and financial growth.
Me too. But we also need to acknowledge the potential limitations of this self-help approach.
Right. And that's exactly what we'll delve into in the final part of our deep dive.
Oh, can't wait.
We'll explore the potential downsides of relying solely on self-help and how to approach this genre with a critical eye.
Sounds good. I'm ready when you are.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into 30-year-old life hack.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've explored Jae-Chong's story, his 7 steps for achieving, well, basically everything.
Right. Personal and financial freedom, the whole package.
Exactly. But, and I think this is important, as inspiring as his story is, we got to take a step back and look at the potential pitfalls of, like, relying solely on self-help.
That's a good point. It's easy to get swept up in the enthusiasm.
Totally. And while there's a lot to appreciate about Jae-Chong's advice,
Yeah.
I think approaching self-help with a healthy dose of critical thinking is key.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Not everything works for everyone.
Right. And one thing that stood out to me was this issue of generalizability.
Generalizability, okay.
Like what worked for Jae-Chong in South Korea
Yeah.
might not translate perfectly to other cultures.
Or even other individuals.
Right, exactly. His personality, his background, even his specific business ventures,
Yeah.
they all played a role in his success.
It's like trying to follow a recipe without knowing the exact measurements.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
You might end up with something edible,
Hopefully.
but it might not be the delicious dish you were hoping for.
And don't forget, Jae-Chong kind of glosses over the specifics of his businesses.
True, he talks about building passive income streams.
Yeah.
But how of he actually does that?
Right.
It's a bit of a mystery.
It's like he's giving us the ingredients, but not the recipe.
Exactly. And that vagueness, it can be intentional in self-help.
Oh, how so?
It allows readers to project their own hopes and dreams onto the story,
Okay.
makes it seem more attainable.
Yeah.
But it can also be frustrating for those who are looking for, like, concrete guidance.
Right, like show me the steps. And another issue we touched upon earlier is survivorship bias.
Oh, right. We only hear from the people who succeeded.
Exactly. Jae-Chong is like the poster child for this.
Yeah, but what about all the people who read the same books, followed the same advice,
Right.
but didn't achieve that level of success?
Or stories are often left untold.
And that creates this skewed perception of what it takes to succeed.
Totally. Like, we might start to believe that success is just a matter of following the right steps,
Yeah.
when in reality, luck, timing, access to resources, even plain old hard work.
All those things play a role, too.
It's like looking at a lottery winner and assuming that buying a ticket guarantees a win.
Right. We forget about all the people who bought tickets and didn't win anything.
So, should we just dismiss self-help altogether then?
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
I think there's still value in learning from others' experiences
Okay.
and adopting a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Self-help can offer motivation, spark new ideas, provide practical tips for personal growth.
That's like a toolbox, right?
Exactly. Some tools might be useful for you, others might not be the right fit.
And just like with any tool,
Yeah.
it requires skill and knowledge to use it effectively.
You wouldn't try to build a house with just a hammer.
Right.
You need a variety of tools and the understanding of how to use them.
And sometimes you might even need to create your own tools to solve those unique challenges.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable.
So what does all this mean for our listeners?
Good question.
I think it means it's great to be inspired by Jay Chiang's journey and his never give up attitude.
Totally.
But it's equally important to critically evaluate his advice.
Think for yourself.
Consider how it fits into your own unique context.
Your own life, your own goals.
And recognize that success rarely follows a straight line.
It's messy, it's unpredictable.
It's a journey. And to bring it back to one of Jay Chiang's key points,
Okay.
remember how he emphasized the importance of environment
Oh yeah, he talked about how our surroundings shape our thoughts and behaviors.
and ultimately our outcomes.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah,
we encourage you, the listener, to take a moment and consider your environment.
that's a great point.
Is it conducive to growth, to learning, to achieving your goals,
Are there any changes you can make, big or small?
to create a space that truly supports your aspirations?
That's a powerful question for all of us to ponder.
It is.
And on that note, we'll bring this deep dive into 30-year-old life hack to a close.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you,
Likewise, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into Korean self-help.
and that you've gained some valuable insights along the way.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.
Keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep questioning everything.